All right, this is John Robin, and I'm starting the first of a series of videos that I'm going to be doing where I just spend some time with you showing you how I write. This is really meant to be a very informal series. I mean, I'm not trying to compete with some of the great material out there by other authors or gurus of the writing craft. I will occasionally highlight some techniques or principles, and I'm hoping that for either other fantasy writers or other people that are just curious about how fantasy writers write, these videos might be helpful. But otherwise, it's more just I'm kind of started this just to experiment with screen recording software. I'm by no means an expert in any of this, and also I don't have the time or energy to start doing a another series of things. So this is really meant to be off the cuff, very informal. You're not going to feel like any of this is scripted. So anyway, as a first video, I wanted to just give you a tour through Blood Dawn, which is what we're looking at right now on the screen. It's the weekend, and I tend to write about 20 manuscript pages every weekend, so that's about 7,000 words for those of you that are familiar with word counts. And it's also November 1st, the start of NaNoWriMo. I'm not partaking in NaNoWriMo this year, but I know a lot of people who are, so today I'm kind of sort of motivating some other writers and kind of staying in touch with them as I work on my words today. So I've been just getting started on this, and I have everything open. So I thought before I dive in and do my writing for the week, I would just take you on a quick tour through what I do. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Scrivener, what you're looking at right now is a program called Scrivener, which is very useful for writers. I think Microsoft Word is probably the other program that I think everyone who writes knows about. I used to write in Microsoft Word, and there's nothing wrong with using that program, but the reason I've moved over to Scrivener is because I just love the way that it allows you to divide up your manuscript. You'll see on the left here, there's sort of like a menu, and you see I'm able to color code like that. The program doesn't come this way. It gives you the option to select icons, and so these are called flags. There's 7 different colors. It's just some customization that I've done to make this a little more personal for me. So say every time there's a Venton chapter, I have it colored violet, and I can scroll through all the scenes in Blood Dawn and see everywhere there's purple where there's Venton. So it just allows me to quickly go back to earlier chapters if I want to look something up, which I do quite a bit. This is a genre where you're doing a lot of digging. The further in the book you get, there's a lot of earlier setups and layers of complexity that need to make sure that I've dealt with appropriately. Yeah, this is not meant to be a tutorial on what Scrivener is. That's a whole subject unto itself, and I am by no means a Scrivener expert. I kind of have just learned as I went along. I started literally with, you see one of these here, say this is Arena chapter. You just a screen like this, a little note, and I wrote the first Arena chapter. I might as well show it to you here. Where are we? So this was the first Arena chapter. I've split it into 2 halves because it makes it easier for me to reference particular spots now. But I mean, it was just one file that had the opening chapter, and all of my notes, any extra things that came out, like how I would reference seasons or elements of the world, I just really, typed in point form, notes about whatever it could be, time, etc. And that just kind of carted along, and eventually it got long and unwieldy, so I made a separate file that I called Tale, because it was sort of like a tale on the scene. And eventually I broke that up into different categories, and as you'll see up here, these tabs are different Scrivener files. One of them is all exclusively for characters, so these would be my main point of view characters, and I have just different ways of organizing all the information on them so I can quickly retrieve it. This file evolved about a third of the way in. It's called Generators. It's a lot of the background elements to the story, so things that deal with structure, like theme, breakdowns of plot, character archetypes. So you'll see I follow quite a structure here. A lot of this is based on the very helpful tools that I picked up from a book called The Anatomy of Story by John Truby. So as I was going through that and also reflecting on my own way that I tend to structure a story, I built this and went through his exercises, but put it into play with Blood Dawn, going through and breaking down the premise and further working on it from there. So I tend to just keep these all here. I don't reference this a lot, but there are times where there might be certain symbols or story elements, and I want to go back to this and just check. It could be something as simple as I choose to have eagles flying in the sky, and there might be some symbolic meaning. One of my characters, Venton, she sort of is a little bit like a wandering orphan, and so I often use cats, sort of stray cats or different lions, or anything that invokes the idea of sort of the wandering cat, or that finds itself and finds its place in the world. That's kind of a reflection of her character. So it's just an example of where I've used some of these elements. And as you can see in here, I don't have these all complete. The way I tend to write and the way I tend to world build, I just fill in what's relevant when I need it. Because I really think sometimes if you force yourself to fill things in, it might not fit in the story, you might never use it, or you might find that it creates a wall for you. So I really only dip in where it's relevant. It's also a big time, it factors into a lot of your time that you could spend writing your story. So anyway, that's what this generators file is. There's the world itself. Of course, everything I'm telling you here is a little detour. I'm telling you about how a couple notes in the first scene evolved into all these different Scrivener files now. So here's the world, and this really for me is the most important file, next to some of the character notes. As you can see, this just evolved. Originally it was just that simple list at the end of the chapter, and now I have people, places, things, and breaking it all down. What originally was just a random list, as I went on, and in Blood Dawn, as you'll see, there's quite a few scenes, and every time I write a scene, I build on the same framework. So gradually, this thing evolved, and I didn't write this beforehand. The world that I'm writing in, I've known for 20 years. It's been something work in progress since I was a teenager, and so this world's familiar. But that said, the story always surprises me and throws details in that I never would have expected. So I tend not to obsess with filling all this in. I approach this much the same as, you know, the generators file, even characters. I only really get down what's important, like their core motivators. Similarly with the world, I really just attach the things that are important, you know. So you'll see, like, for example, I've got religions, and this would just, I put them down whenever I mention them. But as you'll see, some religions I really built a lot of. Like one of my characters, Jane, she follows the river ways, and she taught it to Rena, and Rena is one of the major characters of Blood Dawn. So of course it made sense to expand a lot more on these details as they came up in the point of view chapters. And you'll see that with these other religions here. And same thing goes with language. I've been creating languages for 20 years as well, and I have them. I have detailed notes. I even have scripts and things that they kind of tie in with the same artistic bent that I've followed. You know, with maps, I've drawn a lot of maps of my world, and I've also tried creating languages. So, you know, but even then, when I approached Blood Dawn, I decided I want to leave things fresh. So the Aracor language, for example, you know, that's a lot of old words, root words, and sounds, and I have the complete character set in my enormous pile of paper. But I've really only recorded here things as they've entered the story, just to make sure that every time I build more, or I talk more about the language, that it actually makes sense. So that's the world. You know, that this could be a whole video of itself, taking you through this, but I really just want to give you a glimpse of what these files are, and how, when I'm writing Blood Dawn, or the chapter I happen to be writing, or wherever I'm at in the manuscript, I often will use these as reference and build them accordingly. So the final one that I really don't deal a lot with is this one here, called Series. And just to sort of make sure I'm not, you know, I don't want to convey the sense that I've got all my books planned out, or that I'm going to write this big long series. But basically what happened is, as I started writing Blood Dawn, it really evolved into something where I knew there was going to be more story. So you'll see here 1,000 Roads, for example. That's the working title for the sequel to Blood Dawn. I'm pretty sure there will be a sequel. Of course, this is all assuming Blood Dawn is published and takes off and makes readers happy, which, I mean, based on the work I'm doing, I don't see any reason why it won't. But that said, you don't know until it's out there. But regardless, when I'm writing the story, I kind of need to know where things are going to resolve. And so, you know, I just, for Rena, I knew there were things that I wanted to explore with her in the future. And you know, I shouldn't show you too much. I don't want to spoil things. That said, if you looked at these notes, I'm really not spoiling much, because I am, in terms of writing, I'm a bit of a hybrid plotter and a pantser, and basically that means I have a plan, but I will completely change the plan as the story demands I do so. So these notes really are just so that they're there for me to deal with when I get to them. Yeah, and so I have ideas in my mind for how this story could play out over a larger epic, and I would love to write these stories, and I definitely see them turning into books, quite a few books. You know, that I could hypothetically be writing for the rest of my life. So this area here allows me to just quickly record details and organize them. And, you know, when I'm done writing Blood Dawn, I will come to these files and I'll spend a long time cleaning them up and going through a lot of the pre-writing stages that I did with Blood Dawn to kind of ruminate and build the spine for the sequel. But for now, I spend very little time worrying about. I mean, this looks like a disaster, and that's totally fine because it's really just meant to be a place where I dump any of my notes or ideas so that I don't get distracted when I'm working on the important thing, which is the story. So getting back to the story, I thought maybe as a final thing today to introduce you to Blood Dawn, I just show you the structure. Many of you who are viewing this are probably familiar with some of the opening chapters, and maybe you've even read some of them. So, you know, this familiar opening is here, and you'll see, right, there's a thing called One Who Waits, and I've got it put in here in front of Blood Dawn because in a way I see it as a prologue. Although that said, I don't think it would be appropriate as a prologue in the novel, but when the book goes to publication, I guess we can let the editors or the publishers decide. So for now, One Who Waits is available as a short story. Some of you might be familiar with the title already, or maybe even have read it. But this story is very important, and I've got it color-coded green because it follows a character named Alcamal. And Alcamal is, it might sound like a strange name, but he is, as you'll see, I got a lot of revision notes here. Alcamal is, that's a name that this boy who we meet in that short story, One Who Waits, it's a name he's given himself based on a dagger that could have killed him and turned out to be a magical dagger that allowed him to save his life. So he's a very important character in Blood Dawn. Probably the hardest character to write of all the characters who I have tried to tackle. And in fact, just last weekend in my writing, I finally broke through, and I think I captured some of his core motives, and that's going to help me go back and rewrite a lot of these previous Alcamal chapters. He doesn't have that many chapters in the book, but nonetheless, there are 7 characters in Blood Dawn, and I've structured this novel so that every character will have a complete arc, and you'll feel like you follow them through some critical changes, and likewise their all their lives and these 7 different stories follow a similar theme, and they often echo each other or reinforce each other. So that's sort of something I've been careful to put in place while writing this book. So yeah, we were talking about just some of the opening and the structure, and you'll notice like it says chapter 1, chapter 2, and some of you might recognize these things. My my section dividers where I have a little quote. So here is that opening quote you'll see on my Inkshares page, and here's another quote. Each section, I mean, I call it a chapter, but that's just for, I have to name it something so I know what it's called. It could be a section or a part. It's really a collection of point of view chapters. And you'll see that I name them. So say Rena, it'll just say Rena at the start. That's partly for me because it just allows me to quickly tell whose point of view I'm in when I look up the chapter. I don't know if I'll end up naming these chapters or what, but I mean for now, again, it's just a referencing system. Another neat thing that I should say, you'll see I have 2 different panes here. This is a feature of Scrivener, and up here it's you know, if you want to get rid of it, you can go like that. And so it gives you can split it vertically, or you can split it horizontally. For writing, I like to do this. You'll notice in the world I've got a vertical pane, so it allows me to just have 2 different, it's sort of like a filing system, 2 different parts open. at once, and so that's convenient in this one. But for writing, I definitely like this. I generally use this window up top for another chapter if I have to go back and say read it over. Like here, I'll just show you an example. Today I am picking up on Manwin, and I'm say writing here, and let's just say there's something important with Manwin's chapter, and it goes back to something that happened here in this chapter. Maybe I might go back and read it, and having it open here, it's a quick reference. I can maybe there's something in this paragraph that I want to reference and make sure that it's correct. Oftentimes I just do this to familiarize myself with some previous issues a character's been dealing with, or previous elements that were introduced, just to make sure that as I'm writing the chapter and staying focused on the goals within it, I'm not also wandering off and abandoning things that have been set up from before, because sometimes several weeks will go by before I come back to a certain point of view chapter, so it's good to just get that reference. A lot of times also I might be in a Manwin chapter, but there's other characters and things that happen, and things that might relate to the certain chapter I'm writing, and I want to go back and remember that. This book is getting more and more complex. And right now, as you'll see, I'm right here, and you'll see that the end of Blood Dawn is right here. So I am right at the very end. This part 11 will probably get a little bit longer, but they're going to be very short point of view chapters. This is pretty much the head-on final conflict. There's some really cool stuff about to happen, and probably going to get to it this weekend, just sort of get into the start of it. As you'll see here, I'm in the final stretch, and I forget where I was going with that, or what I was saying. Yes, the complexity of the novel. I mean, it's getting, as all the things are coming together, there's just so much that's been set up. And I'm fortunately, this system of organizing everything and having my notes here and going back and forth has prevented me from a complete disaster. I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon when I get through this part 11 here. Maybe then I can say I made it okay. But as it's looking right now, I've got a good sense of everything on the table, and it should all come together. The part here, part 9, which is quite long. There's a lot that happens here, and this is sort of like all the springs loaded, Jack in the Box ready to burst free. This part, I was really worried writing this that if there was anything that I'd overlooked or not put together right, the whole book was going to fall apart. So I wrote this with a lot of care, and some of these chapters, even though they were short, they took me a long time to write, and I really abandoned a lot of my plans because I realized that some of my original intentions just were not going to work out for the overall book and how things have to play out in order for everything to come together. So this is Blood Dawn. There are 13 parts. You'll see there's a little offset epilogue here. It's not called an epilogue. It's just like the One Who Waits prologue short story. It sort of functions as its own little chapter, but it's also Skippy, who is one of the sort of the nickname for one of the orphans. Quite a major character in this book, and it's his point of view that closes the novel off, and there's a pretty important meeting that happens there, and sort of a really exciting way to leave Blood. Blood Dawn comes to a finish with Rena's story and the various things that happen, but I also want to leave it so that there's a sense of more that could happen. Not a cliffhanger, but the idea that there are more stories that that are going to unfold in a future book or two. So I think I've done everything I want to do here. Again, as I said, this is not a Scrivener tutorial. If you want to know more about this program, you could definitely look it up or try it out yourself, or just Google Scrivener. That's the name of the program. And I will occasionally explain a few things about how this program works. I don't really have a plan for my videos. It's going to be very spontaneous. Like maybe on weekends when I write, I'll turn the video on and let you follow me writing, and I might occasionally narrate a few things or tell you a little bit about what I do to explain a technique, because I'm forever using techniques. Sometimes I'm even inventing them as needed. So and I'll try to highlight whatever. If the video's useless, I won't upload it. But occasionally I will stumble on something nice that's worth keeping, and I'll highlight that in the headline or the description of the video. And I'll also try to, I work with video editing software, so I will try to maybe put in some text to tell you, if the cursor is blinking for 15 minutes, that you can move ahead. It won't be that long. I don't usually stall for that period of time without doing something to get out of the rut. But you don't want to watch a cursor blink for 2 minutes. Maybe I put some text on the video and you could jump ahead if you don't want to watch it, or if you do, go ahead, right? But at least the text will be there to give you a sense of what the video has to offer. So anyway, I'm gonna close this off. It was really just meant to be an introduction. I'm eager to finish this Manwin chapter. There's just a couple things that I need to add in to finish it off, and then I'm going to jump into some exciting forward motion here in this story. So I will, I'll probably make another video maybe next weekend and put this together and get it up on YouTube. Please leave me comments. I just want to have fun with these. I don't really have any big agenda, so if there's anything that you want to see or any comments on how I can make these better, please leave them for me, because that'll help me with the next one that I record. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and for many of you that have never heard my voice, it's just fun hearing what John Robbins sounds like. Otherwise, I will sign off and get to writing for the day. Okay, alright, thanks for watching, and I look forward to some of your comments. Alright, goodbye.